3 years had passed since the trial of the conspirators. Queen Elise stood in the palace gardens watching the sunrise paint the kingdom in shades of gold. She was 25 now, no longer the uncertain orphan girl who had once sewn dresses by candlelight. The grain reserve program had expanded to 140 villages across Altheria. The drought was a distant memory, replaced by 3 consecutive years of abundant harvests. But success, Elise had learned, often came with unexpected sorrow. King Adebayo had been declining for months. At 56, the wise king who had welcomed an orphan into his palace and supported her dreams of transformation now spent most days in his chambers, too weak to attend council meetings. Master Simon, the royal physician, had done everything possible, but the king's heart was failing. Prince Rowan, now 28, had quietly assumed more responsibilities over the past year, preparing for the inevitable transition. He presided over council meetings with the same wisdom his father had shown, making decisions with careful thought and genuine care for the people. Elise supported him as always, managing the grain reserve program and advising on matters of social welfare, but she knew the weight of the crown would soon rest entirely on her husband's shoulders. One morning, as the first light crept through the palace windows, a servant rushed to their chambers with urgent news. "Your Highness, Your Majesty, Master Simon requests your immediate presence." The king. They didn't wait for him to finish. Rowan and Elise raced through the corridors to King Adebayo's chambers, their hearts pounding with dread. Inside, they found Master Simon standing beside the bed, his weathered face grave. King Adebayo lay propped against pillows, his breathing labored, his once strong frame appearing fragile beneath the royal linens. "My son," the king whispered, his voice barely audible. "My daughter." Rowan knelt beside the bed, taking his father's hand. "Father, save your strength. Simon says I'm dying," King Adebayo interrupted with a weak smile. "And he's right. But before I go, I need to say what's in my heart." Elise moved to the other side of the bed, her eyes glistening with tears she fought to contain. "Rowan," the king continued, "you've become the leader I always hoped you would be. These past months, watching you guide this kingdom with wisdom and compassion, I couldn't be more proud. You're ready. More than ready. Father, please. Let me finish." King Adebayo squeezed his son's hand with what little strength remained. "The crown is heavy, but you won't carry it alone. You have good counselors. You have strong systems in place. Most importantly, you have a partner who understands that true leadership means serving the people, not ruling over them." He turned his gaze to Elise. "My daughter, you came to us with nothing but brought us everything. You showed us that an orphan's heart could hold more wisdom than a council of nobles. You proved that cooperation creates more prosperity than competition. Promise me you'll continue guiding the grain reserve program. Promise me you'll keep showing this kingdom that where someone comes from matters less than what they choose to become." "I promise, Father," Elise whispered, tears now flowing freely down her face. "And both of you, promise me you'll keep changing happening. Don't let the old ways creep back. Don't let fear replace the trust we've built. Prove that what we created together can outlive me." "We promise," Rowan and Elise said together. King Adebayo closed his eyes, his breathing growing more shallow. "Good. That's all I needed to hear." Master Simon stepped forward, checking the king's pulse. "His heart is giving out. It's only a matter of hours now. I'm sorry." They stayed with him through the day, taking turns holding his hand, sharing memories, and saying everything that needed to be said. Lord David, the elderly council chairman, came to pay his respects. Captain Jacob stood guard at the door, his usually stern face showing rare emotion. Even Gregory, the former conspirator now working in the grain reserves, was permitted to briefly visit, offering quiet thanks to the king who had shown him mercy instead of execution. As the sun set that evening, casting the royal chambers in warm orange light, King Adebayo opened his eyes one final time. He looked at Rowan with deep love and pride, then at Elise with gratitude that needed no words. A peaceful smile crossed his weathered face. The kingdom, is in good hands, he whispered. I can rest now. His breathing slowed, then stopped. The great King Adebayo, who had ruled Altheria with wisdom and compassion for 30 years, had passed peacefully into the ancestors' embrace. Master Simon confirmed what they already knew, then bowed deeply to Rowan. Long live King Rowan. The words hung in the air like both a blessing and a burden. Rowan stood slowly, his face a mask of grief and resolve. He had prepared for this moment, but preparation couldn't ease the pain of loss. Inform the council, he said quietly, his voice steady despite his tears. The kingdom mourns. But the kingdom also continues. That's what my father would have wanted. The next 7 days passed in a blur of mourning and ceremony. All across Altheria, people wept for the king who had led them through drought and transformation. The funeral was attended by thousands, nobles and peasants alike, all equal in their grief. King Adebayo was laid to rest in the royal tomb with full honors, his accomplishments and character praised by all who had known him. On the 8th day, the coronation ceremony took place. It was more solemn than such events usually were, the joy of a new king tempered by the loss of the old. But it was also filled with hope, for the people had watched Rowan grow into leadership, and they trusted him to continue his father's legacy. The crown was heavy on Rowan's head, but his shoulders were strong enough to bear it. Beside him, Elise stood as his queen consort, her role unchanged but her support more crucial than ever. Together, they received the oaths of loyalty from the council, the nobles, and representatives from villages across the kingdom. Lord David, now 75 and growing frilier by the day, spoke for the council. Your Majesty, we pledge our loyalty and our wisdom to your service. May your reign be long and prosperous. May you rule with the same wisdom your father showed. And may the transformation of this kingdom continue under your guidance. I accept your pledge, Rowan replied, his voice carrying through the throne room with newfound authority. And I make my own pledge in return, to serve the people of Altheria with every breath I take. To continue building the systems of cooperation my father and Queen Elise established. To prove that a kingdom built on trust is stronger than one built on fear. My father's legacy will not fade. It will grow. The throne room erupted in applause and cheers. King Rowan had begun his reign. Oh wow! King Adebayo just died after giving his final blessings, and now Prince Rowan must carry the heavy crown alone. How do you think King Rowan will handle leadership without his father's guidance? Can he keep the transformation going? What happens next will test everything they've built. King Rowan's first month on the throne was consumed by the responsibilities of rule. He attended endless council meetings, reviewed reports from across the kingdom, settled disputes, and made decisions that affected thousands of lives. The work was exhausting, but he approached it with the same dedication his father had shown. Elise continued her work with the grain reserve program, which now functioned smoothly after 3 years of refinement. She visited villages, reviewed distribution records, and trained new community leaders. But she also made sure to support Rowan, offering counsel when he needed it and simply listening when he needed that instead. One afternoon, as they reviewed kingdom finances with Lord Samuel, the royal treasurer, a messenger burst into the council chamber with urgent news. Your Majesty, forgive the interruption, but there's been a disaster in the Eastern Territories. The Kashari River has flooded after heavy rains. Multiple villages are underwater. Homes destroyed, crops ruined, and... The messenger's voice broke. At least 50 people confirmed dead, with hundreds missing. Rowan stood immediately, his mind racing. This was exactly the kind of crisis the grain reserve system was designed for, but it was also his first major test as king. His father was no longer here to advise him. How many grain storehouses were affected? Elise asked, already calculating what would be needed. 3 completely submerged, 2 damaged, the messenger reported. The surviving villages are overwhelmed with refugees. They're running out of food and shelter. Rowan looked at Elise, then at the council members. This was his decision to make. His alone. Summon the full council immediately, he commanded. Send riders to all villages within 2 days' journey of the Eastern Territories. Tell them to prepare emergency supplies. Captain Jacob, mobilize a rescue team. Master Simon, gather healers and medical supplies. We leave for the flood zone at dawn. Lord David, leaning heavily on his staff, spoke up. Your Majesty, with respect, perhaps you should remain here and coordinate from the palace. It might not be appropriate for the king to. My father taught me that leadership means being present when your people suffer, Rowan interrupted gently but firmly. I won't ask villages to share their grain reserves while I sit comfortably in the palace. I need to be there, working alongside them, showing that we're all in this together. Within hours, the emergency council session had convened. Rowan stood before the 12 council members, looking every bit the king his father had been. Councillors, we face our first major crisis since my coronation. The eastern floods have devastated multiple villages. This is exactly what the grain reserve program was designed for. But I won't command villages to share their reserves. Instead, I'm asking them to choose cooperation. To prove that 3 years of working together has changed how we think about community and responsibility. Marcus, one of the 3 former conspirators now serving as a logistics advisor, raised a concern. Your Majesty, what if villages refuse? What if they choose to keep their reserves out of fear? Then we'll know the truth about whether our transformation is real or just surface level, Rowan replied honestly. But I believe in our people. They've surprised us before. The council voted unanimously to activate the kingdom-wide grain reserve system, sending requests, not commands, to all participating villages. Over the next 5 days, the responses began arriving, and they exceeded everyone's hopes. 48 villages sent aid. Some sent 20% of their reserves, others sent 40%. The messages that accompanied the grain shipments brought tears to Elisa's eyes. We remember when no one helped us during the drought. Queen Elise taught us we're stronger together. This is what neighbors do. Even more remarkable were the contributions from the northern villages where Gregory and the other former conspirators worked. Gregory himself traveled to the palace to deliver their message. Your Majesty, Gregory said, bowing with genuine respect. The village of Carden sends 35% of their reserves. They voted unanimously. And Marcus, Henry, and myself, we request permission to go to the flood zone to help coordinate relief efforts. We know these systems. Let us use that knowledge to serve. Rowan studied the man who had once tried to have his wife killed. 3 years of serving in grain storehouses had genuinely transformed him. Permission granted, Rowan said. But you'll work under Master Simon's authority for medical matters and Captain Jacob's for security. Your knowledge is valuable, Gregory. Use it well. No way. The villages are actually sharing their grain without being commanded. Even the former conspirators want to help. Are you surprised villages chose to share? What do you think will happen when King Rowan arrives at the flood zone? What happened next shows his leadership being tested like never before. At dawn, King Rowan departed for the Eastern Territories with Captain Jacob, Master Simon, a contingent of guards, and supply wagons filled with grain, medicine, and building materials. Elise wanted to accompany him, but they both agreed she was needed at the palace to coordinate the ongoing relief efforts and manage the kingdom in his absence. Come back safely, she said as they said goodbye at the palace gates. I will, he promised. Keep the grain flowing. I'll send daily reports. The journey took 3 days. Along the way, they passed through villages that had contributed to the relief effort. People lined the roads to cheer their new king, some offering additional supplies, others simply wanting to show their support. When they finally reached the eastern flood zone, Rowan was struck by the devastation. The Kashari River had overflowed its banks, leaving entire villages submerged. Survivors huddled in makeshift shelters on higher ground, their faces hollow with loss. But amid the devastation, there was also hope. The grain relief system was working. Villages from across the kingdom had sent food. Master Simon had established healing stations. And Gregory, Marcus, and Henry were coordinating the massive logistics of distribution with unexpected efficiency. Rowan didn't set himself apart. He worked alongside the survivors, helping distribute grain, carrying supplies through mud, and listening to stories of loss. He held the hand of a mother who had lost her children to the floodwaters. He helped an elderly man salvage what little remained of his home. He thanked volunteers from distant villages who had traveled days to help strangers. One evening, as the sun set over the flood zone, Captain Jacob found Rowan sitting exhausted on a hillside, surveying the recovery operation below. "Your Majesty, you should rest. You've been working since dawn." "So has everyone else," Rowan replied. "How can I rest when they can't?" Jacob sat beside him. "Your father would be proud. You're showing these people that their king isn't just someone who gives orders from a throne. You're proving that you genuinely care." "I hope it's enough," Rowan said quietly. "My father led this kingdom for 30 years. I've been king for barely a month. What if I'm not ready for this?" "You are ready," Jacob assured him. "Because you're not trying to rule like your father. You're trying to serve like him. There's a difference." Over the next 2 weeks, the flood recovery became a testament to what cooperation could achieve. Villages that had never met worked together. Former nobles served alongside former peasants. Children from wealthy areas played with children who had lost everything. And Gregory, the man who had once hired an assassin to preserve the old way of doing things, now worked 18-hour days to prove the new way could survive any crisis. One afternoon, Rowan found Gregory organizing a supply distribution, his voice hoarse from giving instructions, his hands calloused from manual labor. "Gregory, take a break. You've been working non-stop." "So have you, Your Majesty," Gregory replied with a tired smile. "Besides, I have 3 years of selfishness to make up for. This is the least I can do." "You've more than made up for it," Rowan said. "What you're doing here, it's saving lives. My father showed you mercy, and you've turned that mercy into service. That's true redemption." Gregory's eyes glistened. "Your father gave me a chance to become better than I was. I won't waste it." As the 3rd week of recovery began, the flood zone had transformed. Temporary shelters had become organized camps. Food supplies were stable. Master Simon's healing stations had prevented disease outbreaks. Most importantly, the survivors weren't just receiving charity, they were being treated as partners in their own recovery. Rowan sent a message back to Elise. "The system works. Not because I commanded it, but because people chose it. Father was right. We built something real." Her response arrived the next day. "I'm proud of you. The kingdom is proud of you. Come home when you're ready. And when you do, there's something important I need to tell you." King Rowan returned to the capital exhausted but fulfilled. The flood recovery was well underway, and he had left Gregory and Master Simon to oversee the final stages. The kingdom had proven itself capable of surviving crisis through cooperation. But there was little time to rest. A foreign delegation had arrived during his absence, and they were waiting. "King Jabari of Khazara," Elise explained as they walked through the palace corridors. "He arrived 3 days ago with his daughter, Princess Nola, and 50 advisors. He says he wants to learn about our grain reserve system." "What do our scouts say?" Rowan asked. "That Khazara has suffered 3 poor harvests. Their people are hungry. Jabari could be seeking genuine partnership, or assessing our weaknesses before invading." Rowan sighed. "Of course. I defeat a flood, and now I have to face a potential war." "There's something else," Elise said, taking his hand. "Something I learned while you were gone. I'm pregnant, Rowan. We're going to have a child." He stopped walking, his exhaustion forgotten. "Truly." Master Simon confirmed it before he left for the flood zone. "I wanted to tell you in person, not in a message." She smiled. "Our child will inherit this kingdom someday. I want them to inherit peace, not war." "Then let's make sure that's what they get," Rowan said, pulling her into an embrace. The formal meeting with King Jabari took place that afternoon. Jabari was a tall man of 45 with sharp, calculating eyes and the bearing of someone accustomed to absolute power. His daughter, Princess Nala, was 19 with her father's sharp features but softer eyes that seemed to take in everything. King Rowan, Jabari said with a bow that was respectful but not subservient. I've heard remarkable things about Altheria's transformation. A grain reserve system that ended hunger. Villages working together. An orphan queen who revolutionized your kingdom. His eyes flickered to Elise. Some call it propaganda. Others call it miracle. I came to see which it is. Come see for yourself, Rowan replied. We have nothing to hide. Over the next 3 days, Rowan and Elise personally showed Jabari and Nala the grain reserve system. They visited storehouses, spoke with village leaders, and reviewed distribution records. Jabari asked sharp questions about costs, sustainability, and what happened when villages refused to participate. Rowan answered honestly, including admissions of failures and challenges. No system is perfect. This one requires constant attention, honest communication, and genuine trust. But it works because people believe in it. On the third evening, during a formal dinner, Jabari revealed his true purpose. I'll speak plainly, he said, setting down his wine glass. Khazara is struggling. My people are hungry. Your people are prosperous. This creates tension. My advisors suggest 3 options: invade and take your grain stores by force, demand tribute for peace, or attempt to learn your system. But that third option requires something I'm not sure exists: genuine willingness to share knowledge without expecting submission. The room went silent. Rowan felt Elisa's hand on his arm, steadying him. Is that a threat? Rowan asked carefully. It's honesty, Jabari replied. I brought 50 people, not 5,000. If I wanted war, I would have brought an army. Instead, I brought my daughter because I wanted to see if partnership was possible. But I need to know, would you help Khazara implement this system, or would you see our weakness as your advantage? Rowan stood, his voice carrying the authority his father had possessed. 3 years ago, Queen Elise proposed this grain reserve system to my father. Many nobles opposed it. They said it would fail, that people were too selfish. They were wrong. Not because people aren't selfish, but because people can choose something better when they see it working. He looked directly at Jabari. If you want to implement this system in Khazara, we'll help. Not because we expect tribute, but because hungry people in Khazara deserve food as much as hungry people in Altheria. We'll send advisors. We'll share our methods. We'll help you adapt it to your needs. But your people must choose cooperation. Your nobles must choose participation. You must choose to serve your people, not rule over them. And what do you gain? Jabari asked suspiciously. A neighboring kingdom that's stable instead of desperate. An ally instead of an enemy. And proof that what we built can work anywhere. Rowan extended his hand. The choice is yours, King Jabari. Partnership or conflict. Choose wisely. King Jabari didn't answer immediately. Instead, he made an unusual request. He wanted to see the eastern flood zone where King Rowan had just spent 3 weeks. Anyone can make a system work during prosperity, Jabari explained. Show me how it works during crisis. They traveled together to the Eastern Territories, Rowan, Elise, Jabari, Nala, and a small guard escort. The journey took 2 days, passing through villages at various stages of recovery from the old drought and showing the current abundance. What Jabari saw in the flood zone stopped him cold. He saw communities that had lost everything receiving help from strangers 100 miles away. He saw Gregory, a former noble conspirator, working himself to exhaustion to coordinate aid. He saw children from wealthy villages playing with flood survivors, sharing toys and food without any sense of superiority. He saw a system that worked not through force, but through genuine belief. This man Gregory, Jabari said, watching him direct workers. Your people told me he tried to have Queen Elise assassinated. Yes, Rowan confirmed. Yet he's here, serving? He chose to become better than he was, Elise replied. That's what this system offers, not just grain, but a chance for people to choose cooperation over fear. That evening, as the sun set over the recovery operation, Jabari sat with Rowan on a hillside overlooking the organized relief efforts. I came here expecting to find weakness, Jabari admitted quietly. A kingdom grown soft, vulnerable to someone willing to use force. Instead, I found strength I didn't know existed. You can take grain by force, but you can't take the trust that fills these storehouses. If I invaded, I'd gain temporary supplies but lose the knowledge of how to create lasting prosperity. He turned to Rowan. I accept your offer. Help Khazara implement this system. But I need you to understand. My kingdom is different. My nobles are more entrenched. My people are more desperate. It won't be easy. It wasn't easy here either, Rowan replied. We had conspiracies, assassination attempts, nobles who fought every change. But my father supported the effort, and Elise showed people that cooperation was possible. If you genuinely commit, we'll help. But halfway measures won't work. Then I'm all in. Jabari extended his hand. Let's build something better. They returned to the capital and formalized the alliance, not a military pact, but a commitment to cooperation and shared learning. Altheria would send 5 advisors to Khazara. The kingdoms would support each other during crises. Most importantly, both agreed that prosperity in one kingdom should lift up neighbors rather than threaten them. 3 months later, during a council meeting, Lord David stood with difficulty, leaning heavily on his staff. Your Majesty, the elderly councillor said, I have served Altheria for 50 years. I served your grandfather, your father, and now you. I've watched this kingdom transform from one built on fear and hierarchy to one built on trust and cooperation. I've seen an orphan become a queen and prove that where someone comes from matters less than what they choose to become. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. I'm 75 years old. My body grows weaker each day. It's time for me to step down and let younger minds guide this kingdom forward. Lord David, Rowan protested, your wisdom is invaluable. My wisdom is available whenever you need counsel, David interrupted gently. But my time as council chairman is done. I recommend Marcus for the position. The room gasped. Marcus, the former conspirator? He knows the grain reserve system better than anyone except Queen Elise, David continued. He's proven his transformation through 3 years of service. And most importantly, his appointment would show that redemption is real, that people can change, that our new way of doing things means what it claims. Rowan looked at Marcus, who sat in shock. Then he looked at the council members, seeing doubt mixed with consideration. All in favor? Rowan asked. One by one, hands rose. Even those who had once voted for Marcus's execution now voted for his elevation. The transformation was complete. 6 months later, Queen Elise gave birth to a son. They named him Adebayo, after his grandfather, meaning the crown meets joy, a reminder that true leadership answers to a higher calling and brings joy to the people. The kingdom celebrated for a week, rejoicing that the royal line had an heir who would carry his grandfather's name and legacy. But the most meaningful moment came quietly, in the palace gardens, when Elise held her infant son and spoke to him softly. Your grandfather was a great king who welcomed an orphan into his palace. Your father is a great king who proved leadership means service. And you, my son, will inherit a kingdom built on cooperation, trust, and the belief that people can choose to be better than they are. You carry your grandfather's name. May you also carry his wisdom and compassion. Never forget that where you come from matters less than what you choose to become. That's the golden legacy, not gold in wealth, but gold in value. The value of proving that human beings, when given the chance, will choose cooperation over competition, trust over fear, and service over selfishness. King Rowan stood beside them, his arm around his wife, looking out at the kingdom his father had built and he had preserved. Somewhere in the Northern Territories, Gregory was training the next generation of grain reserve managers. In Kazara, King Jabari was implementing his own version of the program, sending regular reports of progress and challenges. In village after village, storehouses stood full, symbols of what people could achieve together. The Golden Legacy wasn't about one person's accomplishments. It was about building systems that survived beyond any individual. It was about proving that true leadership meant creating something that didn't need you to succeed. And as the sun set over Altheria, painting the kingdom in shades of gold, knowing that the work was far from over, but confident that the foundation was strong enough to last for generations to come. Because that's what legacy meant. Building something that outlived you, that continued growing long after you were gone, that proved change was possible and worth fighting for. Incredible. King Jabari chose partnership over conquest. Lord David appointed a former conspirator as council chairman, and baby Adebayo was born to inherit a kingdom transformed by cooperation. If this ending filled your heart with hope and showed you what true legacy looks like, smash that like button and subscribe to Folktales by Inaya. Drop a comment. What's your favorite moment from Elise and Rowan's entire journey? And what does this story teach us about leadership, redemption, and building something that lasts? This is the power of choosing cooperation over fear. Share this with everyone who needs this message. Turn on notifications for more inspiring African folktales. Thank you for following this incredible journey. Remember, where you start doesn't determine where you finish.